We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
I may not be a millionaire. I may not have a brand new Frigidaire. My clothes ain't all fancy, and my car ain't brand new, but there is joy in my house.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. A reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it. Hello, hello.
And I'm joined here, back with my co-host, Lolita Robinson.
Glad to be back. Hey, welcome back for you. You took a couple of weeks off.
We did take a couple of weeks off.
Yes, I'm sure
I'm
you
more
needed it.
happy that you're back.
I'm glad to be back. I really am.
If you don't know, Lolita Robinson is the co-host to the show. She's been my spiritual mom for many, many years, and she is the one that led me to Christ. A lot of times in our lives, we have these people that are placed there by God to introduce himself to us.
That's true.
And you were that for me.
Well, and you've been a wonderful son to me. And I really want to say that when I had the accident, that's why I've been gone for 5 months. I was sad that I couldn't come back, but it never, ever entered my mind that you would not be able to do this. You have run this with faithfulness and diligence in the midst of your own stuff, and I want to say congratulations to you.
Thank you. Well,
and hi, Van. I'm so glad to see you.
Yeah, because, that one line that you do, it took me almost 5 months to get it right. And I still couldn't get it right.
Well, according to our guest's mother, who's going to be on today, her mother told me, that's grammatically not right, grammatically not correct, but hey.
She made the corrections on our
I know.
on our outline. Well, ladies and gentlemen who are listening and viewing, I want to thank you for being a part of the joy that we have in our house here on Joy in My House on latalklive.com. I want to thank you for listening and viewing and being so faithful to us to tune in every week to listen to some of these amazing stories of God working in people's lives.
Gosh, you've had a whole host of different people, so many different ranges. I mean, I know you can't recap everybody, but who was the last person you had on before you took
last week?
rest?
We actually did a rebroadcast of Dr. Ron Simmons. He is the CEO and founder of 3-in-1 Drug and Alcohol Program, and he wrote this fictional book called Recovery Tower.
I remember we went there to his church, Church of God of Christ, right?
Yes, and we actually had a great event, 3-in-1 with Devon Franklin. Lou Gossett Jr. was there.
That was amazing.
That was a great opportunity as well. But he had this amazing book, and it's a fiction book where he talks about getting in an elevator and reaching all these levels where, first it's denial, then the realization, which was very interesting story on this path to recovery.
Right. You can probably relate to it a lot, huh?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't read it, so how was he comparing the elevator to?
Just every step of recovery.
Okay.
We talk about the 12 steps in our recovery program at Celebrate Recovery or AA, and each step has a journey.
Right.
A realization, making your amends and what it is to make an amends. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, good. So did you have some downtime? Because I know you have really been hitting it you got new clients.
I am slam teaching.
New car. But you deserve it. You got to take care, So how did you rest?
It's been, I run from pillar to post.
Right.
And people say, how do you do so much and you have so much energy? I'm a little older, a little slower. I'm not as young as some of you out there who are listening and viewing now. I think it's their generation.
Right.
My generation is just to suit up and show up.
Yeah.
That's it. That's where I'm at now. So God really opens the time and the doors that he wants open.
Right.
Had opportunities to start new shows with other companies that
That's what I hear.
were really interested in picking me up, and just their follow through wasn't there. So I said, you know what? That must not be of God.
We certainly know how we have looked like things were going to open and they close. I've had a lot to kind of take in. God knows what he's doing.
Yep.
But at least I'm sure you've gotten educated.
Yes, I've had a lot of opportunity, a lot of interesting people.
To know what's legitimate, what's not, how business is working.
Oh, yes.
So has that been good?
That's been really eye-opening, especially doing the show now for a little over 2 years and having such amazing guests and relationships and rapport with all the people.
Right.
It's given me that opportunity. But you've also had some downtime.
Oh, a lot
where
of downtime.
you had the time to actually just sit in God's presence. Tell us a little bit about what you went through.
Oh, man.
Because it's been a while.
It's been a while. I call it like being under house arrest. It was been like being confined for 5 months. And the first couple of months was really, really hard. I was like delirious going through the healing. It was hot during the summer. I didn't really get to see the value of it. But the last 3 months, my walk with the Lord is incredible. I had to pray more, listen to sermons, and I had time to kind of rethink life and to realize that he took me down to nothing. I mean, my car got totaled, my new car.
No.
All of my work was wiped out.
Oh my
All
gosh.
of my jobs was work. I mean, everything was gone. Everything was taken. And one time I prayed, I said, Lord, I pray that the next thing is not my life.
Wow.
But I felt like him telling me, I'm going to really show you what it means that I am. He showed me 2 areas where I was off. Reliance, fierce self-reliance, and I had a very undivided heart. And I didn't know that. And so within that time period, I know now that all of my resources, everything, comes from him. I mean, there were times I was getting so many calls with people. I had nothing but him. Even when I fell and I was in the operating room, it just happened. I was there by myself, and I really got a sense that people can come around us and be supportive, but apart from him, you can do nothing. There was times at 3 a.m, it was no one but me and him. But
No, I can
you know what I'm saying?
I can contest to that.
Yeah.
I remember last Christmas I was by myself.
Right.
My kids were with their mothers, and I got sick. I got really sick, and I had nobody.
Right.
I've been so used to having these women in my life, or these
Right.
people taking care of me all the
Right.
time, or even my kids around. Even when I'm sick, I
Right.
take care of my kids all the time. But to really be alone and just be in his presence and having to rely on him giving you this
Because that's the truth.
supernatural peace.
Yes, he does. He does. And there were
It's
people
amazing.
who gave me support. My sons were fabulous. You came. I had people who were there. But ultimately, apart from him, we can do nothing. Because people
I
come and
agree.
go. My husband died. People are coming back. He's blessing. But like you said, there's a time when it is just him and you. And so thank you for asking. I'm glad to be out of house arrest. I got to go back later. But at least I'm on furlough.
Well, I want to thank you out there who are listening and tuning in to Joy in My House here. I want you to know you can follow us on Facebook /Joy in My House. Like the fan page and receive up-to-date lineups of guests and information. You can also find us on Twitter.com. You can tweet us with any questions or comments for our guests or for ourselves. Also know that you can watch all of our archive shows here on the network's website on www.latalklive.com. Just click on shows, Joy in My House, and watch all of our shows for the last 2 years. And I want you to know that you can stream us live. So if you're just listening to us on a mobile device, know that you can stream us live, watch the audio and video on ustream.tv /LA Talk Live. When we come back, ladies and
I'm
gentlemen,
excited.
we have Sarah from
Oh.
Celebrate Recovery. She is one of the landing leaders. She'll be here live giving her testimony.
Yay.
You're not going to want to miss.
Good
This is
lady.
Joy in My House, ladies and gentlemen. You stay tuned.
How can I forget you? Where did the sweetness go, Lord? Have I fallen from your hand? Am I so far from you, Lord? Is my life in your plan? Where can I run when I feel all alone? Do my words truly reach you high on your throne? Where did your presence go, Lord? Have you pushed me far from your mind? Where did our laughter go? Will you smile on me one more time? How can I walk when the lights are growing dim? This pressure is hard and I feel
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. And today we're going to touch on recovery. We have a great guest. Well, first, I'm joined here back with my co-host, Lolita Robinson.
Very good to be here, and you look spiffy as always.
Thank you. And our in-studio guest, Sarah, from Celebrate Recovery Landing Program out of Parkcrest Christian Church. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. We always like to let our audience and viewers know how we met and how we know you. We know you through Celebrate Recovery. Parkcrest Christian Church is where I do my Celebrate Recovery and where Lolita has spoken quite a few times.
And I did mine there too, and I would like to do another one, so I'll contact Kathy. I got the time.
And you are one of the Celebrate Recovery landing leaders there, which my daughter actually attended your landing program there as well.
Oh, that's
Yes,
right. Is
that's
that the
right.
youth landing? Is it for the youth?
Yes, for
Yes,
the
it's
youth.
Celebrate Recovery for
Oh,
students, junior
okay.
high and high school students.
Good.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
It
I
was
remember,
amazing.
yeah.
That is how we met. That is how we met. And it's very interesting because Kathy over there, you know, you wouldn't know it, but she has an amazing story herself and had the opportunity to share with you Celebrate Recovery, which you then started doing, and now you're here to give your testimony.
Yes.
That says a lot about your mother too. I mean, because you went through the story.
Right.
And the fact that God has brought the healing between you and your mom, and you guys now are ministering together. How is that? Is it hard sometimes? Was it hard when you first came in?
You know what? That's been one of the most amazing parts about this whole thing. I love doing ministry side by side with her, and you know, she's just been a really great teacher to me in that, and she is my mom, so that's a plus. So I'm lucky, but it's been really amazing.
That's great. That's great. Well, I can't wait
Well,
to
we
hear.
do want to let our audience and viewers know your story. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through your family of origin. Tell us where you grew up.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Long Beach, California.
No
LBC.
Yeah, LBC. I was born into a blended family. I was the fifth child. My mom had 2 from her previous marriage, and my dad had 2 from his previous marriage.
Wow, so you're really middle.
So yeah, I was middle.
Yeah.
And then there was one more younger than me, and we grew up together in this mixed house. I never really realized that there was half siblings and step siblings. We were just all one really
That's how I
close
feel, too,
family.
yeah.
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 Well, it was interesting because you said in your testimony that your mom would tell you that you were the one that tied the family together because you were blood related to everybody.
Yes, that's
Oh,
right.
wow. Explain that
Yeah,
one.
I was.
I'd like to hear that one.
I was the one that was blood related to everyone. My mom's I'm half Filipino. My dad is
Okay.
Filipino. My mom is white.
Beautiful combo.
Thank you. And my 2 older siblings on my mom's side were both blonde hair, blue eye kids, and then on my dad's side, my siblings had Filipino features, and then myself and my sister both have Filipino features, and so we grew up in this really interesting looking sort of family, but I never really realized it. I'd go somewhere with my older sister and I'd say, "This is my sister," and it never occurred to me that
She's
someone
blonde.
probably thought one of us was adopted.
But isn't that how we are? We're adopted in the family of
That's
Christ.
right.
That's very true.
And I wanted to touch on that. Your family was very close. You guys were so close that you also had relationships with the biological fathers and mothers of the family
Yeah.
as
Oh,
well.
absolutely.
How did
Yeah,
that look?
they were like aunts and uncles to us. We spent time at their houses, and
You mean like your father's wife?
my father's ex-wife,
Ex-wife,
my
okay.
mother's ex-husband, my father and my mother's ex-husband played poker together. We were a close
Wow.
family, definitely.
What do you think that, now I'm looking back on that, what do you think, how has that shaped your ministry now in terms of maybe dealing with different aspects of people's personalities, or what?
Well, I definitely think that just growing up in a blood-in family, a broken family, and now I'll talk about that later, but I'm close with my current stepdad now, and that's a huge part of my life. Family's a really big part of my life, and just being able to have these relationships with people who might not be blood related to me, but we've been able to.
But you're definitely family.
Exactly.
And I wanted to
Yeah.
touch on, because at the age of 10, you thought everything was pretty much normal. Your family was a normal life. But until 10, you started to realize some things. First of all, that your dad was a violent alcoholic.
Yes, he was. He was.
Is that your Filipino?
My
biological?
biological father.
All right.
Pretty much abusive to everybody in the house in one way or another. To our mom, as the kids, we hated seeing that. That would be the hardest part. And we went through, some years of that. Like you said, it wasn't probably until I was about 10 years old until I started to realize that. Up until then, I played sports. I was in Girl Scouts. We were involved at our church. So it seemed pretty normal. But as his alcoholism started to progress, it was very obvious.
And how did that affect you?
When my mom finally made the decision to leave him, most kids would be very upset. And my sister and I were actually very relieved.
Okay.
Yeah. We were, it was going to be a new thing. We were just a little scared, of course, but
Of safety.
Exactly.
The emotional safety.
Yeah.
Was he violent towards you and your sister?
Not really.
It was more your mother, but to see it was enough violence around.
Exactly. And my brothers, and that was very hurtful. But we just felt like we were walking on eggshells all the time.
That's right.
We never knew how he was going to come home from work. So it was going to feel good to get out of that situation.
Well, you wrote in your testimony that your mom was also extremely codependent at that time. And at that time, they were both engaging in drug use. They were both smoking a lot of weed, smoking a lot of pot.
I can't even imagine how Kathy's just incredible. Wow.
But in 1990, your mom reached her breaking point. And I'll leave that for her testimony.
Okay.
Right.
But she made a calculated plan to leave him. Tell us about that day, because I think that's very profound in your testimony.
Yes.
And you were 10.
I was 10 years old. I was in 5th grade. And I remember that morning she actually packed my sister and myself up. Actually, before that, she had already...
Well, how old were your other siblings?
They were between the ages of 14 and 17.
So she took the whole crew.
Well, she actually strategically placed my older siblings with their other parents.
Oh,
she planned this out, very calculated. And she that morning she took my sister and myself to a neighbor's house, and she had the pastor of our church come over, and they basically talked to my dad and told him that she was leaving and taking us with her. And after that part was done, the truck from the construction company that she worked at came and picked up all our stuff, and then picked up my sister and I, and we went to our new apartment and
that had to be a lot.
Began our new lives.
But you felt relieved, like Joel was saying. You felt relieved that you were out of that situation.
Yes, it was more of a relief than being broken. Very hopeful.
And that's what you mentioned, that it was a day of hope for you. You saw your mom very strong as a superhero.
Yes. Yes, I did.
That is important for mothers that maybe out there that are contemplating whether they're doing the right thing and breaking up the family.
Right.
Maybe you can touch on that.
Yeah, I know it was it was difficult for her. I didn't realize what she was really going through. Just as a child looking at my mother, she just looked like Superwoman,
Right.
But, we found out actually not too long after that she was going through a tougher time than we really realized. And she started to kind of change her path as well from there, not for the better. She started hanging out with the guys from her work and going out and drinking after work, and that
would left you and your sister. Who was taking care of you guys during that time?
Just us. It was my sister and myself, and so we were 9, 10 years old, 10 or 11, and it was scary. My sister would get really scared, and she would be really worried about our mom, and I think inside I was worried, but I tend to try and suppress my feelings.
You look like one who's kind of a quiet rock that you had to hide yours.
Definitely. So I would kind of shut her up, tell her to don't worry about it. But inside I would be scared too. But
well, that's what's so beautiful about this story. This is hard what you're telling people. I mean, in recovery, we open up our closet and we reveal it all. And my sons, we've had to have some conversations about my behavior. It's really hard as the mother to listen to what you went through, but to see how God can use that and bring about healing. I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, definitely.
By
Yeah,
your mom. Yeah.
I can concur with that.
Like that
'cause
too.
I just gave my testimony at a church next to my house, and I live in Fullerton and Brea. And my son, who's 14, his birthday was just this week.
14.
Yeah,
He was 3 when I first met you. 3. Oh my God.
he was sitting in the audience as I gave my testimony. He heard it for the first time in detail, and one of the biggest joys of my testimony was the fact that he was there and that I'm able to be transparent with him. And
Yeah,
I laid it
tell
all
it,
out.
yeah.
Because of program, I'm able to be very transparent
That is
and not
hard
live in
still.
that guilt.
It's still hard, huh?
But it's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing that
Yeah.
he lent me that support. So to have you go through this process and have your mom as
Yeah.
your backbone, it's an amazing foundation.
And hopefully it's
It
help
is.
for people out there too that have family problems like this, that there is hope.
Yes.
There's hope. This is awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't even know that part of the story. That you
And it
girls
goes a
were-
little more
I
detail
know.
here.
Yeah, I get all excited. That's why this man keeps us on task.
You would be left alone with your sister, with your mom's
Yes.
challenges with her codependency. But at this time, you were about 12 years old. Your mom started dating somebody new.
Yes.
Tell us what
This
that was
was
like.
the person who would later become my stepdad.
Okay.
I hated him.
Really?
There's no other
Wow.
word.
Why?
Yeah, he was.
I know him. He's a good guy.
Oh
now,
yeah,
so, yeah.
but he was. He's alcoholic.
Oh, boy.
Also, I was 12.
Yeah,
Not
you
not
wanted
the
your mother. You
not the
finally had your
peachiest
mom.
age.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that in your testimony. You said he was a raging alcoholic. He had 2 annoying kids.
Oh, so there were more kids.
There was
brought in.
more kids. There were more. Now we have 2 more kids to add to the
So
family.
he came in the house and brought the kids with him.
He did. He brought the kids with him, and they were
Jeez.
little, so and I'm coming into my teenage years, so
And
to
so
me
you
to
were
have
like
these
little kids,
they're annoying.
But he did get you a cat.
Yes, that was the
Now-
one light back then. He did. He brought a cat into my life. We were never able to have pets with
Okay.
my dad, and so it was really exciting to have this cat, and he became my cat and my baby, and I had him for 14 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, so it
so
was special.
did that kind of warm the relationship between you and your stepdad?
Not really.
Yeah, that's.
But it's
12 is a hard year.
Yeah.
The reason I mentioned that is because now looking hindsight, you can see that he did have a soft heart.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if you know him today,
Yes, he's magnificent. He's a good
yes,
guy, really good guy.
absolutely.
Well, you had a lot to deal with.
Yeah, there
a
was
lot
a
of
lot going
transition,
on.
a lot of change.
Yeah, you were a little parent.
A little bit.
Oh, you were a
We were
parent,
in
yeah.
it together. My sister and I are really close in age, and but me being a little bit older, I was
You were the little mama.
Yeah,
in the whole
definitely.
bit.
Well, let's talk about that transition from the teenage years, because at this point, your mom is now engaging in her relationship.
What
Right.
about
She's-
Christ? Were they involved with Christ at this point?
no, they weren't.
You just do young.
Actually, at this time, my mom began to drink a lot,
Okay.
and
So there was no religion thing going on.
no,
at all.
not at all. I'll let my mom save that for hers, but
Right.
she was born into a Christian home.
Yes, your
She's
father was a pastor.
right. She's
Okay.
a pastor's kid.
She's a
So,
PK.
but anyway, at that time, they would drink a lot together, and it was just an ugly situation. And I did what I could to stay out of the house, and just kind of stay away. We weren't very close back then, and around this time is when I got my first boyfriend. So I would try and spend as much time with him as I possibly could.
And how
to
was
stay
his
away.
family?
His family was actually great. I
See, sometimes God will do that.
That's
He'll
right.
bring another family around that's a little bit more to kind of help. Did that help you? His
Absolutely,
family?
because
Yeah.
we spent most of our time there, and so I would spend a lot of time with him and his family, and it got me away from my own.
Mm-hmm.
We were young, 13, but we were actually together for 13 years. So
Wow.
so yeah, and he is the father of my son.
Oh, I must see. Now, I've known you for a while, but that's the beautiful thing about being on here. But see, God He will put people. We've talked about that, like you were saying about me, and people have been in my life. When you have a hard time, God will bring people along to kind of like give you something to hold on to
Sure.
before He brings the whole piece together. Wow, I didn't.
Well, I mean, but there was some, and this is kind of what I wanted to touch on, especially for the youth that are listening out there and viewing. There was some chaos and some dysfunction there because from what you saw in your household, then you started engaging in some of that. You started smoking pot with your boyfriend.
Yes,
at a young
exactly.
age.
Yeah, we started just partying a lot, going to high school, partying.
Were you a good student?
I was an okay student. I
Okay.
didn't really have anybody that was pushing me, to do homework or ask about how I did on a test or anything. At that time, my mom didn't care too much. So anything that I did on my own. And and I graduated from high school, but pretty much, any motivation I had came from within. But during high school, I actually got pregnant twice.
Oh.
Yes. And so, I was really just, I was going to school, but, I wasn't really on the best path.
No.
So I was,
Boy, thank you for opening up. This is must be very painful and private stuff.
Have
you been talking about this a lot?
I have. This has actually been a huge part of my
Good.
recovery.
Good.
I did have 2 abortions in high school.
That's what I figured, yeah.
And
How was that experience?
well, at the time, I
Is it
didn't
easy
think about
like
it too
everybody
much.
said? Okay.
At the time, it was. I admit it wasn't too hard of a decision, and it wasn't until I got a little bit older and even being part of Celebrate Recovery really that kind of started making me see this, and I really had to work through the guilt and shame.
I bet. Yeah, absolutely. Did your mother know?
She
that
did.
you had this?
She did. She was.
Okay.
She was. Through these years, even though she was an alcoholic and doing her own thing, we always remained close. And we've always been a pretty open family, and I'm so grateful for that.
Boy, are we all? Look how everybody's benefiting from it. I mean,
And when we
the
had
work,
a chance to talk
yeah.
on the phone, I've gone through a couple of abortions with my ex-girlfriend. And talking from this side as the man, the hurt
Yeah, what
and
is that
brokenness.
like? Do you feel it too as a man?
Yeah.
You do?
Well, you know what you do when you learn how to be accountable. When you know
Okay.
that you're also responsible.
Right.
And for me, my ex was so good to me that she did it for me. She didn't do it for she would have preferred not to. And I had to pay the price for that. I had to pay the price for me being manipulative, for me making her make a decision that she didn't want to. And I, through program, have to let go of that shame and guilt. I made my amends to her.
Right, you have.
But it's a tough thing to let go, even on this side. So I can only fathom what you go through
As a woman.
As a woman, yeah.
Definitely.
And
So
talking
I-
to people
so I-
out there that have gone through that, I'm ministering to some women who are in their 30s and are devastated by it. Did it hit you too? The impact of it?
It sure did. Actually, it was really being in my step study that when
right.
it started to hit me. There was actually another woman in my step study who she talked about her abortions, and she had multiple, and it really touched me, and it made me think about it in a whole sort of a whole new light. And today, I know I'm forgiven for
Right.
that, but it does. When I look back, and even now, I have an 11-year-old son, and he's a doll. I love him so much. But just knowing that, that I did that, and those babies were just as much as my babies as he is. So,
Well, I think it's very important. I mean, it's a subject that's been out there for a long time, but it still needs to be addressed, because people think when you do these things, it's over, but it goes under. Do you think it has a lot to do
absolutely.
with people's addictions? Do you guys think it has to do with people's drinking?
For me, it did. I can't speak for anybody else.
When you go on the surface and have these things going on, do you think that's a part of what drives the addictions?
it definitely, yes.
I think a lot of times for me, I didn't want to face the realization of my irresponsibility.
Right.
Especially as a man, you wanna provide, you wanna be a strong pillar.
Right.
And I was just the opposite. And it goes to show with the decisions that I made my girlfriend make at the time.
Right.
That's
right.
not a man. That's not a
Right.
person who's being supportive and loving. So it's shameful and guiltful. So for me, I had to act out to not want to feel that reality. As most addictions, people don't want to face the
Right.
reality.
Were you still smoking pot during that time?
Yeah,
was
I
that
was.
numbing you?
I don't think. I just think I sort of just and I tend to do that. I'm a stuffer. I like to stuff things down, and really,
well, you
I
have
didn't,
to either that or lose your mind.
exactly. And I
You
just,
know,
I
really,
think I
denial
didn't.
is a gift to
yeah,
a certain degree to get us to where we get to program.
Yeah. So I just think I really didn't think about it
Right.
too much.
And there's a handsome gentleman over in the corner there, and he's very supportive. Reed, right? And I've had a chance to meet him. This is
Yes.
your Bo. I don't want to get you guys down the aisle. I'm good for that stuff. So.
Oh, that's okay. My mom is working on that for
Okay,
you.
I'm what you know. Oh, I was kind of hoping you for my son, but you know what? I like him. He's beautiful. My son is kind of getting it for his own self, but okay. I just want to acknowledge Reed.
And we'll get back to that because at that
Yeah.
point we'll talk about her blessings and her
Yeah.
relationships
Yes.
now.
Okay.
But at 20, you moved out with your boyfriend.
I did. I moved out with my
The same
boyfriend and
guy.
my sister.
Okay.
My son's dad. We had a blast. I admit it.
Sin is pleasure for a season, isn't it? I mean, it is.
It was.
It is true.
We weren't really going to. We weren't going to school. We were working and just having fun, partying, but the fun that I mentioned was we were partying, drinking, doing drugs.
What makes you guys want to stop? I guess you're going to tell that.
Yes.
But I didn't get into that. I was so scared from being molested. I didn't want to be out of control. So, what makes you guys? It sounds like it was a fun life when you drink and have no responsibility. Why is it not fun anymore?
I explain it as a tab.
Okay.
So you're partying, you're doing drugs, you're partying with women, you're having sex, and then there's
no responsibility. I was very responsible my whole life.
But then what happens is the consequences come. Somebody gets pregnant.
Okay.
Your bar tab's $2,000.
Wow. Okay.
It gets to the point where you don't have not just the money, but the emotional
baggage
fortitude
that comes with it.
To put up with it and then you say, you know what, this is not for me. At least that's how I explain it.
How was it? Was it for you? Because I'm like, God, I was responsible my whole life.
Well,
so
for me, it was, and I, thank God I never have had a drug addiction or suffered from alcoholism like my parents. But, so we partied with it and, but then, like you said, a pregnancy. So I got pregnant when I was 24.
Nailed it.
And I stopped, and I pretty much smoking weed was the constant thing that I would always do. I did stop when I was pregnant.
So the baby was kind of gave you a little sense of something. Yeah.
Definitely. But I mean, that's, I started back up again when I was done breastfeeding. And, but it wasn't too long after that. What made me stop was, me just being so forgetful and just my mind not being all the way there. I knew that I wanted to be able to remember my son growing up. I wanted to, remember how he was, in his toddler years and look back and remember specific times.
Because we didn't really talk about how bad it was, but you were
thing.
smoking weed in the morning, in between lunch breaks, after work.
Yep.
So it was a constant. It wasn't
Yes.
What was
just like
it
you
doing
dabbled
for
with
you?
it.
Every day, all
I'm
day.
not Pollyanna, but my thing would have been drinking. God stopped it. But what does it do? Does it just numb you or just make you relaxed or what?
It just, I guess the relaxation and, I think I actually got to the point where I was like, what is this doing for me, really? So that was a good question, and that's what made me want to stop because it was, if anything, it was, like I said, damaging my memories and my function,
Well, for the first couple of years, things started looking well. You were living with your boyfriend. You had your baby. You guys were doing the family thing. But you guys started growing up and going your separate ways, and you met somebody else at work.
I did. I met someone else at work. I started cheating on my boyfriend, my son's dad.
Boy, you are really being transparent today. I gotta say, I take my hat off you guys. You're telling your business.
Yeah.
But thank you, because somebody out there needs to hear it.
Definitely. So I was living a lie and betraying somebody that I really did love. And
what was the appeal to the other guy?
I think it was I had started to change. I had started to grow up a little bit.
Ask with the baby, that had to be. I think God used that baby.
Yes, definitely.
Think a little out of the box, kind of.
Yeah, and he was 10 years older than me, so there's an
Mature.
appeal.
Oh,
He was more mature, and he had money. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That's a lot of times that's an attraction, and he started taking care of me. In a way
that must have been wonderful for someone who, as young as you were, taking care of other people.
Right. Yeah, it was different for me.
And you mentioned that, he bought you a car, took care of your health care, furniture, jewelry.
What?
Yes.
I would be tempted today. Lord, please don't bring me back across my path. No,
But I
I'm
want to
serious.
mention that.
But
I want to mention that on purpose because I think a lot of times those things look so appealing.
It does.
And especially when we're hurting and we're searching. But then you ended up moving in with him and leaving from here to San Diego
That's right.
Gosh, so you left?
But you
I left.
started realizing
You took
some
the baby
things.
with you too, obviously?
I did. I took my son with me, and we, at the time, I didn't really ask his dad. I pretty much told him. I said, we're moving to San Diego, and it was my responsibility to get him back to Long Beach. But we moved down there and away from my family, and so I was all alone. And the only person I had to count on was him. And I think he knew
Used
that,
to
and
control,
he was
yeah.
very, very controlling.
Yep.
And I want to
the
talk
other
about,
side of that, people don't see that.
yeah, and I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
What does that controlling look like? Because
Yeah.
you mentioned one thing that was a red flag,
Yeah, for people to
For
know,
a
that's
lot
a
of
good
people.
question. Yeah.
and he was jealous of your son Tassel.
Yes, he was. He never outright, but I could, I
You
could
could tell.
tell. I
You
can
could
tell.
tell.
And I found myself being very codependent with him, wanting to make him happy. So I would, I'd find myself on that Amtrak bringing Tassos back to Long Beach for the weekend. So
You and him could be together.
we could be together. And the truth is, I probably would have preferred it to be the three of us, but
Right.
but he didn't. So that's not how it went.
So now you can probably understand maybe some of your mother's and her struggles.
Oh yeah.
I think when you grow up, I could really understand my mother better. That's where the healing comes
Yes,
in.
for
You
sure.
live, and so you were kind of doing some of the same things in a way.
Oh yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about one more heavy
This is
subject.
interesting.
In 2007, you found out you were pregnant from him and this is your fourth pregnancy.
That's correct. This is my fourth pregnancy.
I really have a lot of respect for you today. Not that I never did.
Thank you.
This is really pretty weighty stuff.
Yeah, and this time around wasn't as easy as
It
the
was his
first
baby.
times. It was his baby, and I had already, by this time I had already had my son, and I love being a mom, and I think I really let him talk me into getting the abortion. I don't think that would have been my choice.
So he didn't want to have a.
Oh no. And so I went along with it, and this time around was a lot more painful. A lot more painful for me, emotionally and physically. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What can you? Because there's people out there in your shoes. What? You were older.
Older, and by this time, there wasn't really any reason I should have done that. I knew I could have taken care of a baby.
Well, what would you tell somebody out there who's
Yeah.
right now listening and viewing, who's maybe in a similar situation? What would you say to them now, looking back, hindsight? What
With the
would you say to
abortions,
them?
yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're able to, lean on your family and press into God, now looking back, that I didn't know that then, but all I could say from myself now is that's the only advice that I could give. Now.
Well, I
Would
think
you
there's a lot of
encourage
fear.
them to maybe have the baby and put it up for adoption, or
You know what?
That's such a hard.
It's hard for anybody, and honestly, I really hate to try and put
That's
that
good.
on anyone. It's
Let them know there's an
it's your
option.
choice, but there are options,
Right.
and just
You feel trapped during that time.
like yeah, definitely,
Like there's no way out.
definitely. But and if I knew this then, I didn't have God in my life back then.
And that's what I was going to
Yes.
touch on. That fear that we have, I think when you have God in your life, when you have Jesus, you have a foundation of somewhere you can go to. And when you're all alone and you isolate,
Yeah.
or somebody isolates you, you're very weak. You're very
Right.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
And
And you didn't have
susceptible
much
to
of a
some
core
this.
anyway, being an adult child. That's what we have to keep specifying when I'm ministering to different women. We're children. We're adult chronologically, but emotionally we're still children.
Right.
So you didn't have that foundation. So that gives you kind of a little bit of grace.
Yes.
For what you went through.
Yes.
And going through that that abortion, it kind of was one of your determining factors to come back.
Yes.
Too long.
Was that
It wasn't
last straw?
It was one of the last straws. It wasn't long after that where I was just sort of opened my eyes and realized that this was not healthy, and I came back home to be with my family. In
You
Long
said you
Beach.
had physical. Do you have physical complications with this last abortion?
No, I don't.
Oh, you
It was
didn't.
just physically painful.
Okay,
Physically
okay.
painful, but more emotionally.
Okay.
And that's really hard. I think, women and people don't really realize what comes after afterward, but
Some of the consequences you were talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's when the party is over, when the consequences
Right.
Yeah, when you're having to pay
Yeah.
that price afterwards,
Right.
like you said, at the time, you think, well, I'm not ready to have another kid or whatever the situation is, but you get to a point afterwards where you're like, that's a big bill I have to pay.
Right.
That you don't have it emotionally, you don't have it physically, you don't have it financially
Mm-hmm.
to be able to sustain that. But if you have Christ, I think, again, like I always mention, you have somewhere to go to.
absolutely.
You have a rock. And
Right.
one of your songs, Lolita, off your new CD, Changes,
Right.
Christ a Solid Rock, really laid that out for me. Really
Yeah.
laid that out for me, that you can always run to that foundation. And it's an emotional connection that I think some people out there haven't found yet. They believe Jesus is a religion as opposed to a relationship.
Exactly. You said a mouthful. Exactly. But not having any of that in place. You probably
That's
have
an
that on
that's
there.
perfect. That's the next question.
Okay, go ahead. Because I like we work well. So what was your next question?
Well, the next question is, spiritually,
Yeah.
did you find yourself searching now?
Right.
Honestly, not even so much at that time. So I moved back home to Long Beach, and
Where was your mother now?
and she was there
With your stepdad?
And
Were they married yet at
And
this
actually,
point?
yes. The year I graduated from high school, my mom and my stepdad got married. They got sober, and
Wow.
they've been sober since 1997.
Got a powerful ministry.
And
Love
so
to
it's
both of
awesome.
them. Love to both of
Yes.
them. So you went to live with them, with Tasso.
I moved in with my sister at first, and then Tassos and I went and got we got out on our own. But when I did move back home to Long Beach, my mom asked me, come to church, and so I'm like, okay, I'll go, in my own time.
Yeah,
and
when I met your mother, you girls were coming in.
we were starting to come around.
Coming in. That's why, I don't want to tell her story.
Well, we're
but
going to take a quick break, because when we come back, we're going to talk about you hitting your bottom, finding Celebrate Recovery, and finding hope in CR. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joy in My House. I want you to stay
exciting.
tuned. We'll be right back with Sarah. Don't go anywhere.
I'm always in one of mine. Constant spins, not trusting. He opens doors to go in, but I'm afraid to depend upon him. I bring him ashes for gold. He starts to work, I put him on hold. Still he's faithful to me, 'cause he's blind as to see. I'm praising God, praising God. I'm praising God, praising God. I'm praising God. Clothes ain't all fancy, and my car ain't brand new, but there is joy in my house.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House.
on LATalkLive.com. Inspirational radio,
With a touch of recovery.
a reality show where nothing is left unsaid,
And no one is insignificant who says it.
exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com live every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our new show, Gospel Rhythms Talk Live. Join us as we celebrate, promote, and elevate Christians in entertainment. So don't forget to tune in to Gospel Rhythms Talk Live exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio under R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is Gospel Rhythms on LA Talk Live, where we don't just talk about it, we are about it.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. A reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it.
I'm joined here by my co-host who's been out injured, but now she's back. Lolita Robinson.
I'm so
welcome
glad to be here. Glad to be here. Let's get going because I want to hear more.
Well, I'm in the studio with our in-studio guest, Sarah. Sarah is one of the Celebrate Recovery landing leaders at Park Christian Church, and one of the Celebrate Recoveries that Lolita has not only spoken at, but also has participated in the Step Study program.
Really been.
I'm done. We graduated last week. And
you a reader now, hey.
I told Kathy no more. I did a session back-to-back, and I'm pretty
It's a
spent.
lot.
And like we were talking about off camera, it's an emotional roller coaster, and I'm peeling that onion.
Yeah, you still.
It gets to you.
Yeah.
It gets to you, and sometimes you need some downtime.
Oh, yeah.
Never away from Christ. I don't want to say that because that is incorrect.
Never out of recovery or whatever, right?
It's a process that you don't arrive at. You always say.
No.
But sometimes you need to really just sit down and listen, which we talked about earlier in the first segment, that you got an opportunity to do.
Yes, I did.
And it really is an opportunity for those of you who are listening
Yes,
and
it
viewing
is. I've had a lot of time.
that maybe work program, that to sometimes have to just sit still and listen.
Mm-hmm.
I catch myself in meetings too. I can run my mouth all day, every day. And sometimes I get there and I say, today is a day that God has spoken to me to just listen.
You don't want him to sit you down, so you better listen. So
Well, I
go
want to
ahead.
get back to Sarah's story because at this point you're back in Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom introduces you to Celebrate Recovery.
Yes.
Tell us what Celebrate Recovery is.
Well, Celebrate Recovery is a biblically based recovery program. It goes through the 12 steps of recovery with their with 8 principles and their biblical.
The 8 principles are based on the
Right.
Beatitudes.
Yes. So, and it's really for anyone who has a hurt, habit, or hang up, which is pretty much 100% of the population.
I haven't met anybody who doesn't.
You know, when I speak to a newcomer who comes into CR, I tell them no matter what your issues are, you can find some relief here.
Oh, yeah.
Sure
'Cause
can.
when
And somebody to
Lolita-
relate to.
When Lolita first introduced me to this thing called recovery, she asked me to go. She recommended me to go. She
Yeah, and
always
then
makes
God sent your
suggestions.
second mother, Kathy, who
to go and to go into these rooms. What was it for you for the first time
I
walking
was gonna
to
ask
one
you
of these
that.
Celebrate Recovery rooms?
Yeah.
You know, it
Think your
honestly,
mother was nuts?
Yeah, well, it was actually a long time before I actually walked into a small
Yeah,
group room.
it
I
was.
actually started going to Celebrate Recovery because they had a barbecue on Friday nights. So I'm
You
like,
did
I'm
mention that
there,
in your
yeah.
testimony.
So and then eventually,
and then to watch your mother. Did you see the change in her and your stepdad?
yes, I think that's later on.
It's a program of attraction, not
Yeah,
promotion. So did
definitely.
they attract you?
Oh yeah, the huge change in them. And then going when I would go into the service at CR, I'd hear testimonies and I'd see people graduate from their step study, and you hear these stories and see transformation, and it's miracles, like absolute miracles.
miracles.
So you can't help but be intrigued and want that for yourself.
Well, also, I don't know how much of the Filipino culture that you were raised in with your father, because I'm sure he was still in your life.
Yes.
It's a very private community, would you say? So to me, to be this, would you say that? Or
Well, not so much in my situation because, for most of the years I was raised by my mom, and
Okay.
my mom, and like I said earlier, we're very open, and she's,
That's true.
you know her, she's a talker, and we've, and over the years we've been able to be even more open and
Okay.
transparent with each other, and we're very close. So, and I can see what you're saying. So in that culture, it could be, but it wasn't really the case in ours. So, me personally, I sometimes have a hard time opening up or with communication.
yeah, because I've always felt you very, very calming being around you.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
not one who wants to be in the middle and just open up.
Oh no, I'm a definite introvert, and that's something that I've
That's
been.
why this is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been able to realize and accept in the recent past, and so when I first started going to Celebrate Recovery, it was just really listening a lot, hearing stories, and watching transformation.
Did you know you needed help though? See, a lot of
Oh
times.
no, of course not. Of course not. I was just enjoying watching
Those good
everyone else
people,
get healed.
Those poor souls. Huh?
So
Isn't that amazing how we can do that in life?
Yeah.
You were in all those situations, but yet you didn't see that your life was in any kind of peril.
right.
Did you
I
think you were
really
handling
didn't.
it? Did you
That
think you were
denial.
handling it?
No, up until honestly,
huh.
up until writing my testimony, I still didn't. My mom would tell you, I was telling her I don't have a story. I don't really think, I don't think this is any good.
Well,
but
Pastor today at service today was talking
Wow.
about that, how everybody has a story and God can use. He does not waste a hurt.
No.
Right.
But a lot of times we believe that we have nothing to offer.
That's true.
Just the fact that we're children of God,
Right.
we have something
We have
to
a
offer
story.
somebody
That's
else.
a good point.
Yep.
Good point.
And your story started then because you then decided to start a step study. Tell us what a step study is first.
Sure, it's where the real work of recovery happens. You work through all the 12 steps and 8 principles. It's a weekly meeting, and
So tell people, what's the difference between a step and a principle?
well, the steps it's basically the 12 steps of recovery, AA, NA,
Right.
SA,
Right.
and then the principles were created by the Celebrate Recovery people, and they go along with the 12 steps.
So it's scripture that allows you to relate to the step.
Right.
Right.
And it's based out of Rick Warren's church, Saddleback
Yes.
Church. It was
Yeah.
designed by John Baker and Rick.
Yes.
And I think there was another founder there.
So like in regular program, we have the 12 traditions and the 12 steps, but here that we're just clarifying it for the public.
Yes.
8 principles.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Well, were you guys saved? Well, what happened? When did Christ come into
Well,
this?
about a year after I moved home, I started going to church little by little, and
Your mother obviously had rededicated her life.
Yeah, definitely, and we started to. I think getting into church and meeting people and becoming part of a church family, and it felt really good. And in 2009, I decided to get baptized.
Oh, I remember that at the beach.
Yes. Oh no, actually, I got baptized in the church.
Oh, was it the church?
Yeah.
But your mother did it. Did your
She
mother?
did. My mother
Okay,
and my
all right.
sister.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
All right.
Lolita baptized me at
That
our
was
church,
so
Little Bridges
cool.
Church.
Yeah, to watch you guys, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, I wanted to talk about this. What would you tell people about CR? Then we're going to go to work in the program. But what would you tell people about Celebrate Recovery? Somebody who doesn't know what Celebrate Recovery is, doesn't even know what recovery is. What would you say to them about this process?
Just come. Like I said before, if you want to see an actual miracle happen, and it really is for everybody. Everybody has a hurt, habit, or hang up from sometime in their life.
Right, because people think everybody's Skid Row drug
Right.
addicts, and that's not true.
That's not the case. And
Some are, but some are not.
yeah. And I promise you that you will notice a change in your life if you work work through the program.
So at this point, did you kind of looks like there was no really man in your life. You and Tasso's dad were kind of working it out, but were you going through a period of where I need to leave this alone, the relationships?
Well, actually, in this time, I was still sort of stuck in the relationship from San Diego, just real, on and
Coming
off,
out of
and,
it,
and
yeah.
coming out of it, and I was finally able to get out of that relationship, in about, I think, 2011. So it took a really long time of back and forth and running back to him every time he called me. And, even after I had, started going to church and got baptized, it still was hard for me to get away from that. But
And I'm glad you're saying that. For men and women that are in these relationships, it's a process, people. It takes time to come out. So when people go back in, and I watched you, you guys didn't watch me, luckily, because I was much older, but I watched you, and you had to have patience with people, right? And have patience with yourselves. You don't just come out, right?
You had a lot of patience for me. I started doing ministry with you when I was still dating somebody and sleeping with them, and you were so graceful to me. And now that I work with you more closely, I don't want that stigma to be around you.
You
That's
used to
why
ask me, how do you stop that? I go, you'll figure it out.
I've been sexually sober for going on my year.
Oh, wow.
The relationship before that.
Wow, that is huge. Congratulations. I mean that. But it had to be a process.
It really did. I was in a relationship for 3.5 years, and I was doing ministry with Lolita. I was only with her, and I thought, oh well, God, you'll bless it because it's only with her, and I'm in love with her. But Lolita told me something that woke me up. God's not going to bless a sin, and oh man, that got me right in the heart. But you know what? I've noticed that the more I surrender, the more God reveals to me about me, and the more I'm able to walk this path with grace. Because
Did you
before,
feel that too, coming out? Giving other women,
that
like you're
wasn't the
saying?
case.
Giving people grace to come out.
Yeah, definitely. And it just, and that's why Celebrate Recovery is so, big in my life, because coming out of that relationship and having, the support and hearing people's stories, that's what really got me through a lot of that.
Wow.
And that's that grace that I was leading into.
Right.
That grace that people had with you in these groups, because there's very little judgment in the groups. Sometimes we go to church
What are you gonna tell?
and you're judged.
Mm-hmm.
That's
but
true.
in these Celebrate Recovery
Right.
rooms, we all identify as a believer first of Jesus Christ, because that's first and foremost. But then we identify with our addiction.
Right.
But there's no judgment.
But that's what God is getting to the church. The church. This is what the church is supposed to be doing, and this is why Celebrate has the power it has. Like you said, Jesus came for the sick, to help the wounded people. So.
Well, I wanted to
process.
touch on, what does your life look like now that you've done a 12-step program?
And I want to hear about that handsome man sitting at the end of the table. Joel knows I like to hear about those things.
Well, it's been a really, really incredible journey. Since I've completed my step study, like you mentioned, we started the landing at Parkcrest, which is the Celebrate Recovery for Students.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome, and we had it's the same thing like a step study. It takes about a year. We go through all the 12 steps. It's for the kids, and I think back, if only I had this when I was in high school. So we did that. We finished. We went with a group of kids, went through the journey with them, and we had a core group that they graduated from their step study. It's really awesome. Now we have some of those kids who go to Celebrate Recovery on Friday nights. Now they're older. They're older, and so they do that. And that
can they come back and be mentors or in the landing?
Oh yeah, we actually right at this time don't have the landing going on, but we're hoping to kick off hopefully next year. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So tell us about
the relationships.
Your relationships.
Okay.
We'll get to him first.
Okay.
I wanted to touch on the relationship with the person that your mother married that you hated.
Oh,
and had annoying kids.
You're getting good. Give me that.
Well, his name is Jeff. He's my stepdad, and we have a really great relationship now. He's like you said, he has a soft spot.
Oh, he does.
And yes, we love him.
Did he always have it then? But like you were a kid.
And I think I didn't see it, but I'm sure he did somewhere in there. But
what about all the yours, mine's in order?
Yeah, we're still all pretty close, and my step siblings, I can actually call them my brother and sister now. They're not so annoying anymore now that we're all adults. So we have a really good relationship. We have great family times together, and so that part's really great.
And through the chaotic relationships that you had, the dysfunctional relationships that you had, that you'd go back and forth, well, God brought somebody in your life who also works program.
Yes.
And tell us about Reed.
Yes.
How did you? Thank you.
I was actually introduced to Reed by my mom and a friend of hers. He went to our church, and they kind of hooked us up. And apparently, my mom was trying to hook me up with someone for a while.
Oh, boy, we've been busy, man. My son Joe. Okay, but he's doing good. Yeah.
This one stuck, and and it's been really cool because he and I both did a step study at the same time, and
you did it different.
Yes,
did it different.
And just really able to look at ourselves and see things about ourselves and each other, and we're still working on it today. We're learning how to communicate.
That's one of the miracles
the truth?
of program. My fantasy, and it's a fantasy that I hope comes to reality, is to do work program with my significant other, with my girlfriend or my partner,
Right.
Because I think you guys, a lot of
You've had no more partners and wife.
Okay. Well, eventually I would love to be a wife.
That's right.
But we're running out a little bit out of time, but I do want to mention Parkcrest Christian Church in Long Beach. It's on Woodruff Avenue. I want you guys to join the Friday night Celebrate Recovery event. It is dinner at 6, event starts at 7, and then small groups break up at 8. I want you to find more information at at parkcrestchristian.org for more information. But before we come to a close, we always like to ask this of all of our guests: what does joy in my house mean to you in today's day and age?
Oh, today I really find joy in doing ministry, giving back, and doing it alongside my mom and my stepdad and my boyfriend and
little Mr. Tasso.
And yes, and that's what I was gonna say. Being a mom and having a son that is, growing up in the church and loves the Lord, it loves going to church, and that part that just does everything for me. It's awesome.
That's a lot of
Sarah,
joy.
I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Much.
Thank you for spending the time.
Yeah, and I'm so glad it was you to break the tie. I was kind of like nervous coming back. I'm thinking, I probably lost my game, but God brought me you. I just love you, and I'm so happy and good to be
Lolita?
back. Love you,
Love
sweetheart.
to have you back. Lolita
Awesome.
Robinson. If you know Lolita Robinson, she is an author and a contemporary Christian artist. You can find more information at lrcministries.com about her.
And more
Don't
to
forget
come.
to join us next week live here at noon on WWW
Who's
LA
coming?
Talk Live with Pastor Philip Jones. He's the CEO and founder of Missions Impossible International and the CBS ministry leader.
Yay.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Love
this is
you,
Joy in
Van.
My House. I want you guys to catch us next week live here at noon. You guys have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.
Sweetness, go, have I fallen from your head?